everyone, my name is Amber, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you all of the books that I read in September. So I'm in a bit of a different location right now. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm in my new house, which is something that I bought in September, which is kind of surreal to me. I feel it all feels very bizarre, and I can't believe that I own a house and I'm lucky enough to be able to afford a house and pay the mortgage and all of that good stuff. This room is also not packed with books yet, so there may be a slight echo because I was not ready to be filming this, but it's getting towards mid-October and I wanted to let you know what I read in September. So September wasn't the most successful reading month. I only read 8 books in September. My normal amount is 10 to 13 because I was moving. I moved twice, by the way. I didn't read too much in September, but I did read some really good books. I'm going to go in order of when I read them. Sometimes I try to talk about books in order from worst to best, but I haven't really prepped for this video at all. So I'm going to go in the order that I have read them. The first book I read is one that I got from the library, and that was Her Every Fear by Swanson. This is an adult thriller. It's about a group of people, but the main person is a woman who does a house swap with her cousin. So she goes over from London to the US and he goes from the US to London, and then her new American neighbour ends up dead and she needs to figure out what happened to her. Well, she doesn't really need to figure it out, but she wants to figure out what happened to her, and the main character is also suffering from or dealing with anxiety, so there's that as well. And in a murder investigation, that's kind of a hindrance, so she is trying to deal with all of that. I didn't love this book. I only gave it 3 stars. I don't remember much about it. I remember finding it very odd how the points of view switched around. I don't want to give too much detail, but it was very, very strange, and it isn't really a format that I tend to enjoy. So I didn't love that one. Unfortunately, I only gave it 3 stars. I then read Furyborn as a buddy read with a bunch of booktubers and bookish people, and I only gave this one 3 stars as well. So I don't think I'm going to be carrying on with this series, just because after having recapped Furyborn, I've realised I didn't love this book. It's almost in like the 2.5 star range for me. So this is about 2 young women who are teenagers. First is Rael. She is 1,000 years older than the other main character, who I think is called Eliana. She is destined to become the Sun Queen. And then there's Eliana, who lives 1,000 years in the future, and she is investigating the disappearance of her mother. That's all I want to say about the plot, but do know that it keeps going back and forth between the 2 main characters. It alternates entirely the whole way through. So one chapter is from Riel's point of view, the other chapter will be from Eliana's, and then there'll be a cliffhanger, and then it will go back to Riel. And the amount of times the main characters either passed out, got knocked out, fell asleep at the end of the chapter was just ridiculous. I thought it was just a silly way of doing things, so I really didn't like the switching and the alternating between the chapters, and I think I would have liked it more if there wasn't a cliffhanger or a passing out or fainting at the end of every single one. If the author had been a bit more creative, I would have liked that more. So I only gave this one 3 stars, almost 2.5 stars, and I probably won't be carrying on with the series, although I do have a recap up on Recaptains of it because someone kindly contributed it for us, and I've read the plot, and I can honestly say it's not a series for me. I then read The House in the Cerulean Sea, which I read as part of the Space Sirens book club, and I loved this. So I'm going to give this one 4 or 4.5 stars. It's about a main character who works for the government, and his department have to look into magical beings or magical people, and in this world we're not sure if it's actually Earth, but it's kind of an undisclosed Earth-like place. The main character has to go off to the house in the Cerulean Sea, which is a home for magical orphans or just magical children, and he has to figure out if it's suitable for them, if it's doing a good job of keeping them off the streets and away from normal people. I actually loved this one. It was so well done. So it's not an action-packed book, it's not fast-paced or anything. It's a really quiet and cute but also really vibrant book, and there's lots of different rep in it. There's LGBTQ plus rep, which is definitely like the main thing, and then there's also mental illness rep too. I did really enjoy it, and even though it's not my usual kind of thing because I tend to prefer faster plots or more thrilling plots, I did love this one so much, and I think if it's not usually your kind of thing as well, then you should probably still check it out if it sounds like something that would appeal to you if the plot was faster. Does that make sense? And I think the cover for this one as well perfectly matches the feeling of the book. I think the artist for this cover has done such a great job, and I'm so impressed. I then read The End of Her by Shari Lapena, who is a thriller writer who I have ups and downs with. I loved some of her books, but then other ones are just kind of generic thrillers, and this one was kind of a generic thriller. So this one is about, I can't even remember how I was going to describe this. So there's this woman who shows up, and starts blackmailing people. All of these different people have to kind of deal with the blackmail. There's this main couple, and the husband also has a dead wife, and his wife died under what weren't mysterious circumstances at the time, but now they kind of are. So all of his past issues and events get brought back up and come to light in the present day, and it's all to do with that and her blackmailing him about his dead wife while also trying to manipulate other people. And in this book, none of the characters are likable. They're all awful people, and I'm okay with that. I don't really need a likable character in my books. It just felt very convoluted at times, and it was just a bit ridiculous. Sometimes I didn't really love it, and the plot twists didn't really appeal to me all that much. So I didn't love this book. I only gave it 3 stars. As you can see, this is the month for like 3-star reads. I think partly because I was so busy packing and unpacking, moving and then moving back, so nothing really gripped me as much as it could have. I read Contagion by Teri, which was another library book. This one is YA apocalyptic. So in this world there is a virus outbreak. The main characters have to travel around Scotland for various reasons to try to figure out what is happening with this virus. I love virus outbreak stuff. I love zombie books. I love post-apocalyptic books, but this one was a bit too paranormal like for me. I'm not going to go into detail about exactly what the virus is because it's kind of spoilery, but I didn't love the science behind it. I wanted more hard science, but this was kind of magical, mystical science, I think, which isn't really my kind of thing. It was very fast-paced. The chapters were very short. I didn't love any of the characters, but that's okay. So I gave this one 3 stars as well, and I might continue on with the series if I want to recap it for recaptains, but otherwise I probably would not bother. I read Transcendent Kingdom, which is by the author of Homegoing, which I gave 5 stars back in July or August, and I loved Homegoing, but this one just was not the same. I went into it expecting a bit too much from it. It's very, very different to Homegoing. So it's about a main character called Gifty, whose family are from Ghana originally, and they emigrated to the US. Her brother was a drug addict and he overdosed. Her father abandoned them, and her mother is now suicidal. It's a very heavy book. The main character, Gifty, becomes a scientist, a doctor, and she is researching mice and how addiction and recovery play out in the mice. And it was a very, very dark and deep book, and I did really enjoy it for that. I love the author's writing style. I think she does a fantastic job of drawing you in, making you connected to all the characters. I think I was expecting just a bit more of a fast-paced plot, and I know that I said I don't mind slower paced plots like in The House in the Cerulean Sea, but I thought because this one lacked the magical elements and the relationships that I was after, or that I was loving in The House in the Cerulean Sea, I didn't love this one all that much. So I gave this one 3.5 stars because it is a very deep book. It's so well written. I can really appreciate it. It also talks a lot, apart from the other things I mentioned, it talks about the main character's relationship with her faith and religion as well. And because I'm not religious, I didn't really connect to that part of it, but it was still very, very interesting to read about. So I would recommend picking this one up, but don't go into it expecting the same thing as Homegoing, because it's an entirely different story, entirely different characters, and entirely different emotions and feeling to it. That was my mistake, and to be fair, I got it as soon as it came out, so I wasn't really to know. But even so, I think if I were to reread it, I would have the same feelings about it. And then I read Saga Volume 6, which Quill bought when we were moved out and living with his parents, because we were having a really good day and decided to go to Waterstones, and then we were like, why not? We're not paying any rent this month, so we might as well buy some books, and that's one that he bought. I don't really know if I should explain Saga. It's basically a science fiction fantasy space graphic novel series, and I think there are 9 or 10 volumes out so far. It's kind of on pause for the moment. I don't know how long for. I really, really enjoy this series. I do have to buy the graphic novels gradually because they are quite expensive, but I love the characters. I love the family aspect to it. So in the first book you learn that the 2 main characters are from 2 warring species or races, I guess, which are basically the wings and the horns, and they come together, fall in love, and have a baby who is both of those things. She has wings and horns, and then they have to kind of flee through the galaxy to get away from people who want to kill them. So I love it. It's very graphic. There's a lot of nudity and sex and swearing, and it's very, very dark. So I wouldn't recommend it to everyone, but if that sounds like your kind of thing, then definitely pick up this series. And then finally I read my favourite book of the month, and it was from one of my favourite authors. So that was The Survivors by Harper, who is one of my all-time favourite authors. She writes incredible thrillers about close-knit communities communities and families who always have some sort of history or connection to one another. I loved it. So this one is about, let me try to explain this, I'm so bad at explaining thrillers. So the main character returns to his hometown with his wife and child because his father has dementia and he's deteriorating quite quickly, so he's about to go into a care home, and his mother is going to move nearby, so they're selling their house, they're trying to clear it so they can sell it and then move away. Back in the day, when the main character was a young man or an older teenager, his brother died in a storm, in a boating accident, and the main character blames himself and other people also blame the main character. So that happened back then, and then in present day a woman's body is found on the beach, which is also the same spot where a young girl disappeared on that same stormy evening. So it's all interconnected, it's all very, very clever, and I love the relationships that Jane Harper builds. I think she's an incredible author and I cannot recommend her books enough. So I gave this one 4.5, no, just 4 stars, because my favourites from Harper are definitely The Dry and The Lost Man, but this one was incredible as well, and I would highly recommend picking up her books. Some of them aren't all that thrilling, they're more cozy town mysteries, but they're always really dark and really cleverly put together. And this one was kind of about caving, which seems to be a theme because I'm reading a couple of caving books in October too. So that was really exciting and quite a cool kind of lead up to this accidental theme that I'm doing. So those were all the books that I read in September. Obviously it wasn't the best reading month, it was kind of bland for the most part, but I did read some really good books. I think I might have forgotten to say that I gave Saga 4 stars, by the way, but doesn't matter. Thank you for watching. I'll be back very soon with another video. I've got a lot of videos planned and coming up. I just haven't recorded them or edited them yet. I'm probably not going to be sticking to my usual schedule in October because normally I upload 3 times a week. I'm probably going to be uploading at least 4 times a week for the next few weeks so I can do a catch up of what's been going on. To keep you interested, I've got some reviews coming up because that's something that I really wanted to do. I've got my quarterly statistics coming up and I've got my kind of goals for the end of the year coming up as well. And then I'm also going to do some recommendations videos for you for spooky Halloween. So you've got all of that to look forward to. Thank you so much for watching. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll be back very soon with my next one. Bye!